Hello, I'm Adrian Peck, owner of Better Never Stops. We deliver business advice and coaching programs to entrepreneurs who run or want to run £1 million turnover businesses. I am also the author of How to Fall Back in Love with Your Business, the entrepreneur's guide to rediscovering your mojo and enjoying every day by living your dream. I'm going to share with you the Better Never Stop Survive and Thrive Advanced Cash Survival Kit. To get your copy of this template, please go to success.co.uk/advanced cash survival kit. So here is the advanced survive and thrive cash flow survival kit or forecast kit that I've got for you. This may look a little bit different for you. What I've done is this is in the Google version of it, in the Google version sheet, the Google Sheets version. It may look a bit odd for you because obviously I've taken all the menu bars off it. And I've got it kind of at full screen and also magnifying as well, as you can see here. What I will just show you to start with is how you can work well on this. This version that I'm sending you that you have is a read-only version. Only I can edit it. But for yourselves, what you need to do is go to File and then go Make a Copy. And you can then save a copy of this anywhere that you want onto your own folders and hardware, or your own folders, or Google Cloud, or whatever you use. Typically, you can do that. You can also, if you not that familiar with Google Sheets and you prefer in Excel, I have sent you a link to the Excel document, but again what you can do is just download Microsoft Excel excuse me, and that will instantly put you this down the bottom corner here, and that's copied it into Excel. This does fully transfer into Excel, so you can do it quite straightforward and quite easy. So that's how you get to use it. Like I say, you have to save it, otherwise you won't be able to edit it. I'm just going to get rid of this top menu as well, just so you can see more of the screen on there a bit more clearer. So the survival kit is basically made up of 6 very powerful sheets. The first one is this one, is the financial survival checklist. There's a second one which is the expense reduction project. The third is the expense forecasting tool, so we can plan all the expenses forward. The fourth one then is a sales forecast tool, and we've got the same for a cost of goods sold tool as well. And then finally, all of it comes together in this very powerful cash flow forecast. This one takes you right through to actually to October next year. I'll put it right all the way through to. So let me take you through this step by step. Where you want to start is with the financial checklist, and what you've got here is on the top activities here. These are all activities that you can do with your business without any kind of outside support, if you like. So you've got your review your current business. So these are the activities that I recommend that you do. Let's just take these out of here a second. These are the activities that I recommend that you should do in order to maximize and make your cash go further kind of right this minute. So you can review your current business expenses, so that's an option for you to do. If you have any current lending, you can talk to the finance company or the bank about a payment holiday. So again, we'd mark that as a yes or a no. You can talk to your suppliers about extending payments. I'm not sure they'll be very keen, but at the end of the day, is have a conversation with them. You never know. You can talk about your current customers. You need to confirm about when they are paying you and whether you can get any speed up payments from them. So again, that's something I recommend you do. So keep the communication going. If you've got any current assets, perhaps you've got some machineries, perhaps some vehicles that you've already fully paid for or predominantly paid for. Can you refinance them and get some money in against them? So is that an option to you? And then the last one here then is about mortgage and rent support. So if you've got a mortgage on your property, again, can you take a holiday on that, or payment holiday on it? If you've got rent, obviously paying to a landlord, is it worth speaking to the landlord and seeing if you can come to a negotiation around payment of rent? So the idea is that you can go through the whole checklist and you can update it whether it's an option for you. Then once you've completed it, so if you've got a yes, then you're looking for, okay, yeah, I've now completed that, I can go back and play yes. And then you update the cash flow forecast, because obviously then it's going to have an impact to the cash flow as well, either on the expense project or directly onto the cash flow forecast itself. So you can update it there when you have updated it. So it's just a little bit of project tracker really for you, just to give it a clear line of sight of actually what the activities are you need to do, and then once you've done them, you know they're done. So hopefully you get the idea. Then the second part of this sheet here then is all of the government support that you can get. If you just click into these little black triangles in the top corner, it then tells you the detail about what these apply for and how much they're for. So for instance, this one is a cash grant for retail, hospitality or leisure. If your business is in the retail, hospitality or leisure sector, you can receive a cash grant of up to £25,000 per property. So you get the idea of all of those. So all the information is in there for you against each one of them. If you need to expand it out, you can just drag that bottom corner out and you can see more of the information. Again, I would go through initially, are these options for you based on the information that's in here, and you can go through and update your eligibility, yes or no, on the little drop down sheets. Over on the other side here are then the links that take you directly to the government websites or the directory websites. So you just click up to here and it might be running a bit slow. So you can see it's taking you directly to the gov.uk website, and all the information is on here about how you apply for it and what you do about it. So hopefully that's going to really help you. Right, okay, so you can see how these links work on this other side. You can't, on Google, you can't just click into a cell itself to open a link. You have to click into it, and then the little hand comes up and you click the piece above. So that just kind of shows you how all those work. What you have also got along the side here is an indication whether it's a grant, it's a deferral scheme, or it's a loan. So very basically, and sorry to teach you how to suck eggs, but the grants are basically are monies that you will get, and you don't need to pay them back. Well, you don't need to pay them back. There's deferral schemes, which basically is for the things like the tax and VAT. The government has said that you can defer them at the moment, but that doesn't mean you're not going to pay them. You're just going to pay them at a different time. And then of course you then got loans, which of course are, they are loans, they are what they say are, so you need to then pay them back. However, there are some payment holidays and interest-free periods that the government's currently offering as part of those programs. So it gives you, each one of those just tells you what it is, just so that you know. So I've put one in here, for instance, which is the job retention scheme. We've gone through and said, yes, we're eligible, yes, we've applied, and it's complete. We're going to get £15,000, and that's going to go into June, and we've updated the cash flow forecast. So let me just quickly show you that in the cash flow forecast we've put that £15,000 in there, and we've said it's about staff retention. It's the staff retention grant that we've been given, so that sits in there in the forecast. In fact, actually we put that in July. Yeah, sorry, so we've said that's going to be July when we're going to get paid that. Okay, it just gives you a for instance for it. I don't know quite what the payments are, but it gives you that kind of stuff. Again, we've got a small business grant in here that we've applied for. You know, and that £10,000 we're going to have coming in, and let's say we're going to get that in May. So that goes in there, and we've now updated the cash flow forecast. Okay, so you get kind of see how the whole thing works. So it's not just a tick sheet, it's actually a bit of a project tracker that's through it as well, and make sure you're sure that you're on top of everything. So let's move on now to the expense project. So the idea of this is to give you the ability to go through line by line of all your expenses. So these are all your overhead costs that you have in your business. Again, I'll put some examples in here where you've got, you know, cost of employment, you've got marketing, advertising, sales commissions, utilities, lights, telephones, business insurance, motor costs, motor insurance, office supplies, all those kind of things that you would normally have. These aren't necessarily the same as ones you've had. I've just put them in here purely for example. So we've got kind of 5 key steps through this process really. The first one is to ascertain here where you are currently. So that's the important bit here. Then we're going to move on to then creating, if you like, a new budget, which is then step 2. We do a third one, which is then looking at business as usual, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. And then you've got these steps here that once you've identified the savings, are there any actions that you need to take in order to implement those savings? And then who's going to do it within your company, and what the status is for it as well. And I'll put some examples in here which I'll talk you through. So the first step for you to do is to download or copy paste from your accounting program a list of all your expense categories. You can either do it by expense categories or by supplier. It depends really about how many you've got in your business and the detail you want to go into. I've put in here, I think there's about 40 lines in here. So you've got, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's about 40 lines. That should be enough for most businesses, to be honest. Yes, 45. There's 45 rows there, so there's quite a lot in there for you to go after. So download and put those in there, and then you need to put in the current column. Is then update it to say, well, actually, how much is the monthly, typically the monthly cost of those expenses, as they were before the lockdown. You know, before business is not usual. In your current business, what are those costs of those business? Now you've got to bear in mind that some of those costs may be annual costs. So again, you need to look through to what payments you might have coming out on an annual basis, and I'll show you how to put those in a bit later. In business, there don't tend to be too many of those. Most stuff is paid on a monthly basis these days, so you need to put all of those in there. So once let's assume now that you've gone into your accounting system, or you've managed to get an export out of them, you've imported into here. I say either as expense categories or by supplier. We've put what you're currently spending, and the next step now is to actually build up a new budget for it. Now invariably, and when I do this with a lot of business owners, they start finding actually there's quite a lot of costs that they're paying out for that one, they're completely forgotten about, and two, actually that they're not giving them any value anymore, and therefore there's an opportunity to really have a fresh look at the budget, so to speak. So what I've done for you is there's a little drop down box on here, and against every single line, there's the opportunity to put in whether you're going to, is there an opportunity to reduce it, to pause it, to stop it completely, or is it going to be the same during disruption? Okay, and that's the important thing. So whilst you've got this period of disruption going on in your business, will you be able to temporarily reduce it down? Can you just put a pause on it? Can you completely stop paying for it? That's not just now, but that's actually also in the future. Or actually, will those costs be the same? So if we just take you through a couple of examples. So you've got employment costs. We know at the moment that you can put your staff on furlough, and I've just put an example in here that for instance, it's £5,000 a month is the employment cost. You're going to furlough your employees, so therefore you can reduce that down. You're also going to reduce them down by 80%. You're going to top it up by 10%, so therefore they get 90% of their wage. Therefore the cost to you now is only £500. So it's only now £500. So you'll do the same with all these other expenses. So from here we're going to say, well, marketing, we're going to reduce the marketing spend down to just £500. In fact, there's some fixed costs there we can't change, and in order to implement it, I'm going to move over to here, is we need to speak to company X. Sally in your accounts department is going to sort that out, and we're going to mark that one as complete or not. So it just gives you a little bit of a project tracker, because there are some, whilst you identify what some of those reductions and things you can do, you will need to go actually out and implement them, and therefore you can kind of have that tracker there to make sure you are getting them all done. So I would urge you to go through each of these line by line. Can you reduce it? Can you pause it? Can you stop it? Is it going to be the same? And that will then build up what your new budget is. These initially automatically populate from here. So any figures that you put in here, let's just say your one I've done. So motoring costs at the moment are £1,000, and let's say actually they were £2,500 a month, and you decide that they will dramatically reduce at the moment because nobody's travelling around, but there's some fixed costs in there. That automatically populates that it's £2,500. But when you come to do your business, you're doing disruption, so actually, well, we think that we can take that down to £900. We then come on to this third column, which is business as usual. So what will your costs be once the disruption is over and you've gone back to business as usual? So again, it's kind of best case scenario. When it's back as usual, what again? So actually in this instance, there's a good chance it's going to be back up to £2,500 again. And that's what you'd put in there. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So whatever you put in here initially will then, what you put in here initially will then automatically populate in here. Whatever you're going to do in terms of changes, you need to then adjust this down or up, and then put in the business as usual bit as well after that. Okay, and then you need to then just do these actions over here in terms of actually then making this stuff happen as well. That's really important. All right, so that's the business expense reduction project. So the next part, and where that really starts feeding into, is then this next sheet, which is the expense forecast. And this expense forecast, this goes all the way through to November. This here, the first part of it is quite important, is whatever date you put into this cell here will change the months through here. So let's say that you wanted to do this from May. If you put the 1st, of the 5th 2020, that will change of all those lines through there, and you'll now see that should finish now in December, but it also updates all of the other sheets as well. So all of the sheets are starting from that first expense forecast, just so you know. So it keeps the whole rest of the sheets in kind of sync. So let's just go back to here a second, and just put that back to the back to April. Okay, so the purpose of this expense forecast is for you to predict when the cost of those expenses are going to come out of your bank account. Okay, it's when the costs are come out of your bank account. So what I've said in here, that it's a money out cost forecast. So it's i.e. it's when you pay your suppliers, not when you get invoiced. So it's when you pay these expense categories, not when you're invoiced them. That's really important, because that's how we're building up your cash flow forecast. This auto sums down here, so that's automatically picking up on these sums here, which is the same from these columns here. These auto sum. It also automatically pulls through the expense categories from your expense project as well. So whatever you put into these columns here, automatically come into these columns here. You can see they're absolutely mirrored. And this is where then it gets quite powerful, is what I've done for here, and this is why you create those 3 columns, and why these 3 columns are so important: the current, during disruption, and business as usual. Why these 3 columns are so important is that in your expense forecast, what you can then do is there's a little drop down box in here which is current, during disruption, or business as usual. And as soon as you change these, so let's say that with what I've done on here is I've mapped out that for April is going to be current, May is then going to be your disruption line. So we've got May, June, and July, and then August is going to be current. That's going to go to business as usual, and then we've got business as usual all the way back through as well. So we've allowed for kind of a 1, 2, 3 month shutdown, and then we're going back in August. So as soon as you change, let me just show you, as soon as you change that to current, that changes those numbers up there. So that's 19,300. If you do it during disruption, it goes down to 11,700. So whatever you change in here will pull through from those columns in the expense project. What I've also allowed you to do is to put in a prediction of percentage of cost as well. So it might be that as we come back out the other side, is that perhaps it won't be fully business as usual. You actually only be 80%. And you can whatever you change in here, you might say actually it's going to be at 50%, or it's going to be at 75%. So you can also then predict on top of it that kind of graduation of stuff coming back into it as well. Okay, so whatever you put in the project is then going to pull through, and it's then going to populate your expense forecast. So I say it's when you pay those bills, not when you get invoiced, and that's really important. Okay, so the next one is the sales forecast. So in much the same way as the expense forecast, this is all about when you get paid by your customers, not when you invoice them. And that's really important. So it's the month that you get your payment from them, not when you invoice them. Because this cash flow forecast, it's all about money in the bank. It's about money in the bank. So for here, you've got, again, these top lines will automatically calculate. And you've got two choices really. One is to put them through, it might be as a single block. So perhaps you've got lots and lots of customers, or only a very small customer, perhaps you've only got one customer, or you've got one line of revenue. So you get the option of just putting one single line of revenue. So we're going to put in here, let's just call it, sales revenue, and your sales revenue typically is £25,000, and you say, actually, I think we're going to get that for April and May will be the same, because actually April is getting in, perhaps you've got accounts, your customers pay you on 30 days, so actually the April money will be from March, kind of February, March, and then May will be from March, April actual sales. But then from June, July and August, your revenue is going to really drop down, and hence you put it that way. Equally, if you want, you can do it literally by customer name as well. So assuming you haven't got loads and loads of customers, you can copy and paste all your customers' names in here from your CRM or from your invoicing system, and then you can put in what your typical monthly payments are from them, or typical sales, and again you can then roll them out. Very similar to what it is up here, is it allows you then to put in a prediction. So if you wanted to just put in all of your customers and their full amount, and you didn't want to go through it month by month for changing it all down, actually you can say, well, actually all my customers, let's just say for instance that all your customers pay you £25,000. Wouldn't that be nice per month? And let's just do the same for these 2 months. And in April, you'll get 100% of that money, but in May, actually, you think you're only going to get 35% of it. So we're going to cut those down. So you can do it either month by month, like customer, line by line. You can change these, or you can do it just by changing the percentage of what your sales would go down to. And that then builds up your sales forecast. I would urge you to be prudent. You're better off to just underestimate the value of the sales you're going to do. If you end up doing more, that's a bonus. That's going to be a nice thing to have, rather than you kind of over-egging it. I would just be cautious and prudent about the numbers that you put in there. Okay, so that's the sales forecast. Just to support that then is the cost of goods sold. So again, this is about month by month the cost of goods sold that go against your sales. So again, apologise if I'm telling you how to suck eggs, but typically you have your sales revenue, and you then have any direct costs against those. And to be honest, in most small businesses, the employment costs tend to be in overheads, but your things like perhaps paying for materials, parts, materials, you might have carriage that's in there, packaging that might be against it, raw materials that you've bought, third-party subcontract labour, all those kind of things will tend to go in a gross into your gross profit, or into your cost of goods sold, and therefore you have a you then have a gross profit line in your accounts. So again, the forecast is based on when you pay for those, not when you are invoiced for them. So again, it's all about payments that you want to put in here. What I've done is that whatever you put into your sales forecast, so whatever goes into sheet 4, into this row here will then automatically get pulled through into this row here. And you then have two choices. You can either work it on a percentage. So for instance, that you know typically your gross profit percentage, let's say, is 45%. All you have to do then is say, well, put your sales in. If you then put 45% in there, that will automatically update what your cost of goods sold costs are month on month based on those sales numbers. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So you've got, that's option number one. The second option, if you put that down to 0, you can do it category or by name of supplier or by category. So again, if you know what the percentage of costs, or you know roughly what you're paying per each customer, each supplier, you can put that in here as well, line by line, month by month, if you want to go down to that real granular detail on here. So you've got two options, either doing that way or that way, as I say. Okay, so we then come on to the last step. So we've done our expense project. So we've built up our monthly budget for our overheads. We've put that into month on month, what that looks like. We've then done a sales forecast prediction. So we've predicted what our sales is going to be for the coming months. We've predicted what the cost of goods sold are against those sales. And then finally, we've then got the all-singing, all-powerful cash flow forecast. So this is going to track the money in and out of your main bank account for your business. So this is all about your main bank. So the initial part of it is to put in what your opening balance is. So that goes into this cell here. And let's say, for instance, on the 1st of April, you had your balance of your bank account on the opening of that day or overnight was £25,000, and that's what goes in here. The rest of these cells then populate directly from sheets 3, 4 and 5. So sales, and by the way, when you put your sales numbers in, is we want those, these sales numbers should be excluding VAT, because these will automatically pull through your VAT costs. It automatically calculates your VAT, and it's the same for your cost of goods sold as well. They should be net of VAT. They should have VAT on them. So let's just start that again. So the place to start is to put your opening bank account balance on for the first of that month, whatever month you start it on for here. So for here, for instance, on the 1st of April, what was the bank balance for the main account as we started trading that day? So I've put in here £25,000. You then these columns, or these rows through here will then auto-populate from the corresponding sales, so from the corresponding sheets. So you notice that this is in yellow. That's the sales forecast, which is yellow. This one is kind of a browny orange, and that comes from this total up here. And likewise then for your expenses, your overheads come from the green sheet, and they come from here. Okay, so they all self-populate. On the sales, we would have entered those sales numbers excluding VAT. The sheet automatically calculates the VAT. So that automatically puts that through there at 20%. So when you do your sales, they are excluding VAT. So they will populate directly from your sales forecast. You can then put any additional monies in, which I showed you before. So we've got a £50,000 loan from Barclays. We've got the staff retention scheme grant that comes in there as well. Your cost of goods sold comes directly from sheet 5, as I say. So that will automatically populate your thread all the way through here. That will give you your gross profit. Your expense overheads will then come from sheet 3. So that auto-populates all the way through as well, and that will give you an approximate and net profit. At the bottom here then you can put any other payments out of the business. So for instance, you might pay yourself a director's loan. There might be some other amounts that you might pay from time to time. So for instance, you know in July you've got all of your business insurance and everything's all due. So you've got your motor policy, your business risk insurance. So let's say that's £2,500 that you know is going to come out there from those. And again, if you want to, you can just make some notes down here. So for other is the business insurance. So you kind of know what they're for. Just give you some notes in there. Any VAT payments, again, if you're going to defer your VAT, then when is it's going to come out? And the corporation tax as well, you can start putting in there. So what it will automatically populate each row and each item in it, and it works from top to bottom. So that's your opening balance at the end of the month. That was what the closing balance was. Opening balance, closing balance, and it goes down through each set of columns for each month. The idea is then we've got that crazy sales number, and let's just take that crazy sales number out of here for a minute. What it will then tell you is as soon as these items start coming up in brackets, that's when you're going to run out of money. Brackets in here are a minus number. So it's accounting terms. So for instance, it bottoms out here, £180,000. So when you once you've set all this up and you've done all your expenses and put all that in, so before you're going to start claiming any loans and looking what you need to extra money you might need in your business, what you can do is it'll all populate, and you can then start looking at where does your business bottom out, what's that bottom point, how low is it, and therefore that's the point that you need to then look at how you're going to finance that, and you're going to need some extra money in to do that. Remember, to get your copies of the templates I've shown you, please go to success.co.uk/advanced cash survival kit.